Chapter 16. The Final Year. Muhammad's health was failing. His stomach pains, which he blamed on the poison that he had swallowed 3 years earlier at Khaybar, were becoming more severe. He was an expert on folk medicine. He recommended sniffing at Indian incense to treat tonsillitis, drinking honey for diarrhea, applying truffle water to eye diseases, and chanting a healing charm for earache and scorpion stings. For his poison, he had his skin burnt with hot metal, and he had blood let from his forehead, left arm, and the back of his neck. None of it relieved his pain. A few stubborn areas of Yemen that still remain independent were Muhammad's final project. He was never again present on a battlefield in person. He sent his commander Khalid to deal with them. Call them to Islam without violence, he instructed. If they haven't converted at the end of 3 days, fight them. Khalid sent out his sword-wielding missionaries in all directions, promising, "If you accept Islam, you will not be attacked." He was soon able to report, "They have surrendered without any fighting. I am staying among them to teach them about Islam." Khalid's converts demolished the temple of god Khalasa. The local tribes defended their white quartz god desperately and fought off the destroyers until 300 of their warriors were killed. But the battle was in vain. The Muslims slew the temple priests, set the building on fire, and burnt it to ashes. Muhammad sent Ali to continue the work. Ali began by sending his horsemen on a pillaging trip. Only after rounding up captured people, animals, and property did he invite the tribe to Islam. The people refused and started a fight. Ali fought them back until 20 men were killed and the rest scattered in defeat. Soon their chiefs approached Ali to testify to the whole tribe's conversion to Islam and offering an advance payment of their first charity tax. Other tribes of Yemen presented themselves at Medina without resisting the Muslims. There were not as many deputations as in the previous year, only the last few stragglers. Polytheists prayed and paid. Jews and Christians paid super tax. Muhammad's tax collector and Quran teachers took over Yemen. Arabia was said to be laden with faith, and every tribe was officially Muslim.
أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله.
Muhammad's task had not ended with the uniting of Arabia. As he explained it, Allah has sent me as a gift of mercy to all the world. I have been raised up for the victory of one nation and the downfall of another. I have been commanded to fight against people until they testify that there is no God but Allah and that Muhammad is Allah's messenger. However, he had no immediate plan for his next campaign. For several months, he ruled from Medina. Speaking for Allah, he answered scientific questions. Mountains existed to prevent earthquakes. Shooting stars were flung by angels to keep away demons who tried to spy on heaven. When the sun set, it traveled to the far west until it sank into a muddy pond. Cocks crowed because they had seen an angel, and donkeys brayed if they saw a demon. Satan spent the night inside human noses, so one should clean one's nose 3 times on awakening. When he was told that his water came from a well into which dead dogs used, menstrual cloths and chamber pots were thrown, he did not worry. Water is pure and is not made dirty by anything. He encouraged questions to make his teaching clearer, and he praised Aisha for asking a lot of them. But he disliked questions that expressed doubt or criticism. He warned, people in past times were only destroyed asking too many questions and disagreeing with their prophets. Even small disobediences irritated him. He went into Fatima and Ali's house in the dead of night to wake them for night prayers. Ali, still half asleep, murmured, "Allah will wake us for them if it's His will." Although the night prayers were optional, Muhammad complained, "Man is most of all given to contention." Islam was a club based around Muhammad's personality. People did not look at him directly or speak in his presence. The Muslims ran to touch his used bath water. He only had to hint at a wish and someone was sure to carry it out. When a Muslim abandoned Islam altogether, there was no need to bring the case to the law court or even to call witnesses. One of the governors in Yemen met an ex-Muslim. He refused to sit down until the man was killed. So as not to keep the governor standing, the ex-Muslim was beheaded on the spot. Any claim that Allah's Messenger might do wrong was a capital crime. When a dead woman was found stabbed through the stomach, Muhammad appealed to the congregation. "I require the man who has done this to stand up." A trembling man arose and confessed, "Allah's Messenger, she was my slave." The Sharia forbade a master to kill his slave without good reason, so the man explained himself further. "Though she bore me 2 sons and she was my companion, she used to insult and sneer at you. I told her to stop and I scolded her, but she kept on doing it. Last night she slandered you again, so I took a dagger and stabbed her." Although there were no other witnesses to the slave's crime, Muhammad judged, "There is no punishment for her blood." As Muhammad reminded his friends, "I have been commissioned to perfect the virtues." His life was the example for everyone. Certainly you have in the Messenger of Allah an excellent exemplar for him who hopes in Allah. In case his example was in doubt, he made rules for everything. Angels did not enter a house that contained pictures, nor should a householder keep gold or silver cups. Hair should only be combed on alternate days. Wigs and black hair dye were forbidden, though red, brown, and yellow dyes were encouraged. Women might wear gold and silk, but men were only allowed silver. Men were encouraged to wear perfume, but women should only wear scentless ointments in public. Women were forbidden to tattoo. Bells and flutes were satanic, but drums were allowed. Professional singers were allowed only at weddings, but private singing was allowed if the songs were suitable. Betting on horse or camel races and archery contests was allowed, but other forms of gambling were forbidden. One day he ordered every dog in Medina to be killed. When dead dogs littered all the streets, some farmers pleaded for mercy for their worker dogs. Muhammad reconsidered. He decided that red and yellow dogs could be allowed for farm work. However, black dogs came from Satan and must never be left alive. Muhammad never made a clear direct statement about who should rule his kingdom after his death. Ali assumed that he and his son had a right of inheritance in the situation. Aisha always insisted that he intended her father Abu Bakr to become his immediate successor, most likely to be followed by Umar. Abu Sufyan and his son Muaawiyah hoped to take control back into their family, but they were willing to wait for the right time. Muhammad's son Ibrahim was too young to be a candidate. In fact, he did not live long enough to create complications for the adult rivals. He became sick that winter and died in January. Muhammad told Maria to stop crying, yet his own eyes leaked as the baby was buried. Muhammad had not made the great pilgrimage at the Kaaba since he began his prophetic career. In March he took his whole family to Mecca, and Muslims from all over Arabia came together there. It was the first Muslim-only great pilgrimage, and the greatest community festival since Islam began. Dressed in a white sheet with his right shoulder exposed, he demonstrated to the crowd exactly how to perform a correct pilgrimage. Then he stood and preached his final sermon. Here are some extracts from it. Your lives and possessions are sacred. All Muslims are brothers, so do not steal from one another. Repay your loans, but charging interest is forbidden. If your relative was killed before Islam, do not claim blood money. Extra months to adjust the calendar are for unbelievers. We recognize only 12 months in a year. Women must behave modestly. If they do not, Allah allows their husbands to beat them, but not severely. They have the right to food and clothes. Treat women kindly, for they are like your farm animals, and do not possess their own bodies. I have left with you the book of Allah and the example of His Prophet. If you hold fast to them, they will never lead you astray. He finished by asking the crowds, Have I delivered Allah's message properly? Of course they responded, Yes. Back in Medina, life continued as usual for 2 months. Muhammad launched his final military expedition, designed to bring some of Syria under his control. There was no threat from Syria. It was the first step to conquering the whole world. Fight in Allah's pathway, he instructed his commander, and kill whoever disobeys Allah. Heaven is under the flash of your sword. Then he suffered a headache. One afternoon he nearly collapsed. Ali half carried him to Aisha's house. Fatima told the other wives that he could not be moved again, and they all agreed to let him stay with Aisha for as long as he was ill. For 13 days Aisha nursed him, while he ran a high fever and his pain steadily worsened. At night he tossed and turned in bed, moaning and groaning until Aisha scolded, "You would never have tolerated this behavior from any of your wives." When he became too feverish to leave his bed, he said that Abu Bakr must lead the prayers. In his clear-headed moments he continued with his instructions. "Prayers," he kept repeating, "and slaves. Fear Allah in how you treat your slaves." He freed all the slaves in his household, including his 3 sex slaves. "Drive the polytheists out of Arabia," he continued. "There must be only one religion in Arabia. I will drive out the Jews and Christians and leave only Muslims." He reminded his army commander, "March out tomorrow with Allah's blessing." Lying with his head in Aisha's lap, he was restless and could not sleep. He fretted about some gold coins that he had entrusted to her and insisted that she gave them to Ali to be distributed among the poor. He asked for a toothbrush. Aisha chewed a mustard stick to soften it for him, and he brushed vigorously. "I want to be with the people of heaven," he said. "O Allah, forgive my sins and let me enter heaven." Those were his last words. His head grew heavy in Aisha's lap, until she realized he had died. It was the 10th of June, 632. He was 61 years old. Abu Bakr walked in a few minutes too late. He kissed the corpse, then went out to the courtyard where Umar was babbling that Muhammad could not really be dead. Abu Bakr remained calm until he had the crowd's attention, then proclaimed the news. "O people, if anyone worships Muhammad, Muhammad is dead. But if anyone worships Allah, Allah is alive forever." Epilogue. Muhammad, who is dead, lies buried where he died. The Muslims elected Abu Bakr as the successor, or caliph, to Muhammad and leader of the Islamic State. Ali was disappointed, but he made no trouble. Fatima died only 6 months later. After Muhammad's death, several of the Arab tribes declared they would never again pay tax to Medina, and they abandoned Islam. Abu Bakr determined to fight the rebels until they returned to Islam and paid every penny due, down to the last camel's bridle. He collected the army and fought the rebels. By the time Abu Bakr died of a fever in the year 634, he had once again united Arabia. Umar, whom he appointed as the second caliph, began his rule over Islam as king of Arabia. For 10 years Umar obeyed Muhammad's call and dedicated himself to conquest. He sent his armies to the Christian territories of Iraq, Syria, Jordan, Jerusalem and the Holy Land, much of the Eastern Roman Empire, Egypt, Mauritania and Morocco, and the Zoroastrian lands in Iran and parts of Afghanistan. He was victorious, and so these territories fell under Islamic rule. He governed by Sharia with the most complete success. In the year 641, Umar obeyed Muhammad's deathbed wish. He expelled all the Jews and Christians from Arabia. They settled in Syria, where they continued to pay their super tax. Meanwhile, Muhammad's widow, Aisha, hung a curtain in her house and sat behind it so that men could hear her without seeing her. She devoted the rest of her life to teaching Islam and giving legal judgments according to Sharia. She was considered a very learned person. Senior Muslims consulted her. Her work preserved the teachings of Muhammad and shaped much of the Islamic belief and behavior into the form it has held ever since. She lived until the year 678. Umar was an emperor long before the year 644, when an angry slave assassinated him. His closest companions elected Muhammad's son-in-law, Uthman, a cousin of Abu Sufyan, as the third caliph. For the next 12 years, Uthman continued conquering the world. He attacked Cyprus and Spain, and adding the remaining provinces of North Africa, Anatolia, modern Turkey, Persia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, most of modern Afghanistan, and parts of western India, modern Pakistan, to the Islamic Empire. In the year 652, he standardized the Quran, making many small changes, and ordered all the variant copies to be burnt. He had the chapters arranged in the same order that they appear today, approximately from longest to shortest, which is nearly the reverse of the order in which they were written. Abu Sufyan lost his second eye while he was fighting in a jihad, so he never had to fight again. He lived to be 85. He died more or less happy, knowing that his cousin Uthman was a great emperor and that his family was powerful beyond their dreams. Uthman was assassinated by a rebellious mob in the year 656. The Muslims elected Ali as the fourth caliph. Aisha, who hated Ali, set up a rival party to fight him for the throne. Ali's army defeated Aisha's at Basra during a bloody battle in which a quarter of the men were slain. No sooner was Ali established than he suffered a fresh challenge from Abu Sufyan's son, Muaawiyah. They fought for the throne for the next 4 years. Finally, Ali was assassinated by a Yemenite rebel in the year 661. Ali's sons did not have the political or personal strength to resist Abu Sufyan's son for long. Muaawiyah, who was clever and patient, ruled for nearly 20 years without serious opposition. Once the fifth caliph was in control, he resumed the agenda of world conquest. He strengthened Islamic command over the former Persian Empire and overran Sudan. He died naturally in the year 680. However, the basic conflict between Ali and Muaawiyah has never been resolved. Muslims who believed that Islam's leader could only be a descendant of Muhammad, and hence of Ali, were already known as Shia, party supporters. Those who believed that the Muslims should elect a caliph to rule them were known as Sunni, believers in the customs of Muhammad. This internal dispute between Muslims about who should lead them has been a constant interruption to the efforts of both factions to conquer the world. Allah, who is alive in the hearts of Muslims, has never changed the message that He delivered through His final prophet. All human beings must submit to Allah, testify that He is one, and acknowledge that Muhammad is His messenger. The world is nevertheless full of disobedient people who do not submit to Allah. Therefore, the sword of Islam has never been sheathed.